Hello, my name is Jiso and I'm reading Master Dōgen's Shōbōgenzō. We are just starting book number 4 in the Nishijima Cross edition, and we are on chapter 73, Sanjushichi-Bon-Bodai-Bunpo, 37 Elements of Bodhi. Sanjushichi-Bon means 37 kinds. Bodhi represents the Sanskrit Bodhi, which means the truth, and Bunpo means elements or methods. So Sanjushichi-Bon-Bodai-Bunpo means 37 elements of the truth. There are two fundamental schools of Buddhism: Hinayana, or the small vehicle, and Mahayana, or the great vehicle. The 37 methods are usually said to belong to Hinayana Buddhism, because they are discussed in the Abhidharma Mahavibhasa Sastra, which is one of the primary sutras of Hinayana Buddhism. In Japan, and especially among Mahayana Buddhist masters, it was very rare for Buddhist monks to discuss these teachings. But Master Dōgen has his own views on Mahayana and Hinayana. According to him, there exists only the Buddhism that Gautama Buddha taught. He thought that any distinctions between Mahayana and Hinayana are reflections on the different ages and cultures in which the two schools of Buddhism were taught, and he refused to discriminate between the two Buddhist streams. In this chapter, Master Dōgen explains the 37 elements of the truth with no division into Hinayana or Mahayana, but based upon the practice of Zazen. Okay. The reality of eternal Buddhas is present. It is, namely, the teaching, practice, and experience of the 37 elements of Bodhi. The entanglement of ascending and descending through their classification is just the entangled state of reality, which we call the Buddhas and which we call the patriarchs. There are lots of footnotes, but I'm just going to plow straight on the 4 abodes of mindfulness. So there's a series of chapters, subheadings through this. The 4 abodes of mindfulness is here. We've got the 5 powers, the 7 limbs of the balanced truth, and so on. So presumably those all add up to 37. And each subheading, the 4 abodes of mindfulness, for example, is followed by a list. In this case, the first is the reflection that the body is not pure. The second is the reflection that feeling is suffering. The third is the reflection that mind is without constancy. The fourth is the reflection that dharmas are without self. And then each of those reflections, in this case, is then we have a paragraph devoted to each. So, here we go. The reflection that the body is not pure. The individual bag of skin reflected as a body in the present is the whole universe in 10 directions. Because it is the real body, it is the reflection that the body is not pure, springing up on the road of vivid action. If not for springing up, reflection would be impossible. It would be as if the body did not exist. Action itself would be impossible. The act of preaching would be impossible. The act of reflection would be impossible. But in fact, the realization of realized reflection is already present. Remember, it is the realized state of vivid springing up. What has been called realized reflection is everyday actions, sweeping the ground and sweeping the floor. Because we sweep the ground unaware what number moon it is, and sweep the ground and sweep the floor aware that it is just the second moon, the whole earth is as it is. Okay, what number moon it is, and just the second moon, relates to the words of Master Ungan Donjo, quoted in Kaitoku Dentu Roku, chapter 14. While Master Ungen is sweeping, Isan says, "What a terribly hard worker." The Master says, "You should know that there is one who does not work so hard." Isan says, "In that case, the second moon is present." The Master stands the broom on end and asks, "What number moon is this?" Isan bows and leaves. Hearing of this, Gensan says, "That was just the second moon." Reflection on the body is the body's reflection. It is not that by means of the body's reflection something else reflects. Reflection itself in the very moment of it is the superlative having arrived. When body reflection is realized, mental reflection is not at all worth groping for and is not realized. Thus, body reflection is diamond samadhi and Shurangama samadhi, both of which are the reflection that the body is not pure. Diamond Samadhi footnote says Samadhi as a state of great stability. Shurangama Samadhi is Samadhi as a state of valiant onward progress. It is not a question of relative purity and impurity. The actual body is not pure. The real body, this real body, is not pure. In learning in practice like this, when demons become Buddha, they utilize the demon to defeat the demon and to become Buddha. When Buddhas become Buddha, they utilize Buddha to aim at Buddha and to become Buddha. When human beings become Buddha, they utilize the human being to regulate the human being and to become Buddha. We should investigate the truth that a way through exists in the utilization itself. It is like the method of washing a robe. For example, water is dirtied by the robe and the robe is permeated by the water. Whether we use this water and carry on washing or change this water and carry on washing, we are still using water and still washing the robe. In washing it once and washing it a second time, if it does not look clean, do not linger in idle vacillation. When all the water is used up, we carry on with other water. Even when the robe is clean, we carry on washing the robe. Lots of footnotes. I'm going to move on. For water, we use many sorts of water. All sorts are suitable for washing a robe. We can investigate the truth that when water is impure, we know that there may be fish. That is to say, fish can only live in water that is tainted by the presence of something for them to eat. That does make sense. As for robes, all sorts of robes need washing. Through effort like this, the reality of washing the robe is realized, and at the same time, we see what purity is. The point here is that to permeate the robe with water is not necessarily the original aim, and to dirty the water with the robe is not the original aim. It is in using dirty water to wash the robe that the original aim of washing the robe exists. There are also methods of washing the robe and of washing things by using fire, wind, soil, water, and space. And there are methods of washing and cleaning earth, water, fire, wind, and space by using earth, water, fire, wind, and space. The point of the present reflection that the body is not pure is also like this. On this basis, the totality of body, the totality of reflection, and the totality of not being pure are just the kaseya to which a mother gives birth. Alludes to the legend that Master Shanavasa, the third patriarch in India, was born wearing a kaseya. If a kaseya is not a kaseya to which a mother gives birth, Buddhist patriarchs never use it. How could Shanavasa be the only one? We should carefully apply our minds to this truth, learning it in practice and perfectly realizing it. Second reflection, the reflection that feeling is suffering. Suffering is feeling. It is neither one's own nor from outside. It is not tangible, neither is it intangible. It is the feeling of the living body, the suffering of the living body. It means sweet, ripe melons being replaced by bitter gourds, which is bitter to the skin, flesh, bones and marrow, and bitter to the conscious mind, the unconscious mind, and so on. Footnote that bitter is the same character as suffering. This reflection is mystical power and practice and experience, which are one step ascendant, mystical power that springs out from the entire stem and springs out from the entire root, i.e. a mystical power that has sprung up from the intellectual sphere into the area of reality. Thus, it has been said that living beings suffer. At the same time, there are suffering living beings. Living beings are beyond self and beyond others. At the same time, there are suffering living beings. In the end, it is impossible to deceive others. Those sweet melons are totally sweet right through to their stems, and bitter gourds are totally bitter right through to the whole of their roots. Suffering is not easily groped. We should ask ourselves, what is suffering? The reflection that mind is without constancy. The eternal Buddha Sokai says that without constancy is the Buddha nature. So non-constancy, though variously understood by various beings, is always the Buddha nature. Great Master Yoka Shinkaku says, actions are non-constancy, all is empty. Just this is the Tathagata's great and round realization. The present reflection that the mind is non-constancy is itself the Tathagata's great and round realization, and it is the great and roundly realized Tathagata. Mind, even if it intends not to reflect, follows the external world completely. Therefore, where there is mind, there is also reflection. In general, arrival at the supreme truth of Bodhi, realization of the supreme right and balanced truth, is just non-constancy and is reflection of the mind. The mind is not necessarily constant because it goes far beyond the 4 lines and transcends the 100 negations. Fences, walls, tiles and pebbles and stones large and small are the mind itself, are non-constancy itself, and are reflection itself. The 4 lines are the 4 lines of a Buddhist verse, i.e. a gatha, and the 100 negations means the hundreds of negations of Buddhist philosophy. The reflections that dharmas are without self. The long has a long dharma body and the short has a short dharma body. Because they are a realized state of vigorous activity, they are without self. A dog is the Buddha nature as being without, and a dog is the Buddha nature as existence. That, of course, refers to Master Joshu's 2 responses to the question, does a dog have Buddha nature? In the first instance, he said mu, it is without, and in the second instance, he said u, it exists. All living beings are without the Buddha nature. All instances of Buddha nature are without living beings. All Buddhas are without living beings. All Buddhas are without Buddhas. All instances of the Buddha nature are without the Buddha nature. All living beings are without living beings. Because it is like this, we learn all dharmas being without all dharmas as the reflection that dharmas are without self. Remember, it is a springing free from the whole body of self-entanglement. Shakyamuni Buddha says, all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will rest in this teaching forever, regarding it as a sacred womb. So all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have regarded these 4 abodes of mindfulness as a sacred womb. Remember, they are the sacred womb of Bodhisattvas of balanced awareness and the sacred womb of Bodhisattvas fine awareness. The Buddha has spoken of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and so the 4 abodes may not stop at fine awareness. Even Buddhas regard them as a sacred womb, and Bodhisattvas who have sprung free from states prior to balanced awareness or beyond subtle awareness also regard these 4 abodes of mindfulness as a sacred womb. Truly, the skin, flesh, bones and marrow of the Buddhas and the patriarchs are nothing other than the 4 abodes of mindfulness. Okay, we will come back to this tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Take care.